As you guys may be aware, I use GitHub to do tons of things. I contribute to a lot of open source projects. I created my own open source projects. Anytime I do any type of scripts, like being able to deploy miners on cell phones, tablets, things like that, I post all those on my GitHub for the community to use. Well, recently what has happened is GitHub has decided to restrict my account, and they have not unrestricted it. So essentially what has happened is, in the process of this has been going on for the past few months. I haven't been able to actually contribute to projects. They removed my ability to fork repos, which is typically what I will do is I will fork a repository. So let's take an example of creating a Docker image for a repo. I'll usually fork it, create a Docker image, publish it to Docker Hub, and use this to run mining pools, various things. I've created Docker images for mining core, for Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Peercoin, Innova, all the Caspa ones that I did. So the K Heavy Hash Bridge, the Rusty Caspa Daemon, Cedra, Bricks, Bugna, tons of repositories that I did. Well, what they've done is they've removed my ability to do that anymore. And to make matters worse, they've actually also further masked a lot of the files that I have uploaded. So I'm on my GitHub, and I have, under my account, I essentially have access to 3 different organizations. One is Retro Mike one, a couple other ones are some video game ones that I've contributed to over the years. So some of my repos go back quite far. So in fact, if I hop on over to, let's just go here, and let's go to my repositories. And we can take a look at some of my older ones. So you can see I'm a member of a couple different orgs here. And we can take a look, and you can see that I've contributed way back in 2013. So there were various applications I've created back then. These are actually on some app stores now. And some of these are retro video game related. Some of these are just apps in general. Oh, dating back to 2013, never really had an issue until recently. A few months ago, I noticed that I was no longer able to fork repositories. And as I mentioned, to make matters worse, if I go into my mining tools, so this is my profit switcher and auto exchanger. So we open this up. What you'll see is it looks like my code files are there. And it looks like I have 47 releases. You can see the last release was back in November of this past year. However, if I click in the releases, none of them are there. So technically, it looks like technically they're still there in the system, but they're not allowing anybody to access them. So if I grab this and I do an incognito window, that would be an unauthenticated login, you can see that they are not there. So what they've basically done is they've removed the ability for anybody to actually use my application, because part of the install script uses the latest release. So this app can no longer be used. Fortunately, I have it in Docker. My Docker account is still kind of intact, so that is fine. But GitHub has decided essentially to censor me and not allow me to contribute code to repositories anymore. So I did reach out to them to kind of figure out why this is happening, what's going on, what do we need to do to remediate this, because I'm extremely upset about the way everything has gone down. There were no warnings, there were no notifications, nothing. And it even got to the point where I initially thought that it was because I had too many repositories. So I actually took my repository count to 50. I actually dropped it to 49. That didn't resolve it. Contacted them. This is the response that I got from them. I said, some of the activity on your account that's caught the attention of our abuse detecting systems, and your account has been flagged for a manual review. Can you please share a little more info on how you plan to use GitHub? And I find this question hysterical because I'm a developer. That's what I do at my day job. And we use GitHub there. Actually have an enterprise implementation at GitHub for work. And this is hysterical to me because the question is, how do you plan to use it? I plan to use it for what it is, and that is a version control for source code that allows me to execute actions which are used to build Docker images and publish those to Docker Hub. Nowhere am I violating any type of terms, anything like that. And so this should have been, even if it was a mistake, this should have been a simple reactivation. However, it's not. There's been some back and forth going on for several weeks now with their support team, and they keep coming back with the same thing, asking how I plan to use it, with no indication that they're actually going to remedy the issue. And this is a massive red flag for me. As much as I love GitHub and I will continue using my day job, I'm starting to seek alternatives because we are in a decentralized and open environment, right? The idea here is, within the crypto mining space and crypto space in general, is that we shouldn't be able to be censored or controlled by a central entity. And when that central entity, in this case, is actually controlling essentially the source code for apps that we're building, we're really not decentralizing that part of it. We're centralizing the hosting of all the source control. And so, in an effort to kind of get away from GitHub, at least for personal projects, I started evaluating a couple options. And there are two big options that come to mind. There's a project called Git, which is essentially a self-hosted version of like GitHub or GitLab that you can run on your own. And I've actually spun up an instance of that. So I'm currently evaluating this. If we go to Explore, you can see that I actually have a repo set up, just a test repo I created a few days ago. And it looks very similar. So you have basically I have user accounts, and then you can have repositories within those. And then you can see you've got your code repos, you still have issues, you still have pull requests, you still have actions that you can run. And then you also have a package repository. And so this is an option. And then there's another option called OneDev, which I started evaluating. And I'm really liking this one as well. So this one's pretty cool in that it gives you the flexibility to decide what projects you want to be private and public. So one of the things with the free GitHub account is they only allow you to have one private repository, where OneDev, when you self-host this, you have control over that. So by default, everything's private. If you want to make projects or repositories public, you can. And I'm actually going to get logged in here. Once we log in, what you're going to see is we've got our projects on the side here. I'm going to go ahead and select this project. And you can create as many as you want here. There's really no limitation there. But we also have a package repository here. And what this is, this allows us to host our own Docker images within this self-hosted source control platform. That means we would no longer be dependent on GitHub. We would also no longer be dependent on Docker Hub. So this is something that I'm currently pursuing, and I'm evaluating both of these platforms. Right now, I'm leaning more towards the OneDev. And kind of what's going to happen is, and both of these are, they've got anonymous access and they've also got logged in access. So you won't have to create an account to view any of the code that I put up there, depending on which platform I decide to go with. And I'm basically going to be spinning up what will essentially be my own version of GitHub that all of my code will be hosted on. And anybody that wants to create their own projects on it will be able to create their own projects on it, self-host, still do like pull requests and all of that. But we're going to be using, at least me personally, I'm going to be using this to self-host all of my source code for the community to be able to see, access, without being concerned that, GitHub's going to take it down or another entity is going to come in and tell me, hey, you're not allowed to self-host anymore because you created too many Docker images. Something like that. And so these are the two platforms I'm going to be evaluating. And so I would say probably within the next month or so, I'm going to make a determination on which ones of these I'm going to use. The other thing that these still have, you can see there's still the ability to start and watch repositories and fork repositories. In addition, they support webhooks as well. So you can still do GitHub to Discord integrations, which I'll be doing to my Discord as well. I do have a kind of a members only Discord that contains, right now, it used to be hooked up to GitHub, and it would contain periodic updates. Anytime, I contributed code or I did a check-in or a new release, it would ping a Discord channel in my private Discord and notify everybody. So if anybody was interested in, a specific project that I'm contributing to, anything like that, it's a quick glance. They can see it, click into it, and take them right to that. So that is something that I'm going to be looking at with one of these as well. As I mentioned, these are kind of the two platforms. So it's GitT, and OneDev is the other one. So if you go to GitT.com, they don't really have too many screenshots or anything, but you can kind of see it's very similar to GitHub from a structure standpoint. And then OneDev is the other one. And OneDev is more geared towards coders, but it gives you a lot of neat things. And one of the other cool things about it is that it actually, when you set up actions, you don't have to write any code. So when we come in here, and if I decide to go with this platform, I'll definitely do a separate video on it. But you can see when we go to set up a job, we can actually pick what we want those steps to be. So if I edit this test job that I have set up, and you can see that if we do steps and say add, these are all the things that we can run. So if we just wanted to run a command, if we just want to create a Docker image off of the code that's already there, all we have to do is say build image and basically give it a name, Docker image. And then if we've got, Docker file in a subfolder or anything like that, we can specify that here. And we can specify what we want the tag name to be. And, if we want to push it to a container registry, this is the registry that it's going to push it to. And then what will happen is we'll go ahead and cancel out this. When you hit run, let's go out of the edit mode. And basically when you hit run here, it will go off and run it. I don't have a Docker file set up right now, but we can hit run. It will fail, but you can see it's actually executing the job right now. And so it's going out, and there's no Docker file set up right now, which is the definition to create a Docker image. But if there was, it'd actually go out, build it, and then publish it to this package repository that is within our project. And so everything would become self-hosted, and then whenever you wanted to actually spin up that Docker image, you could just, instead of doing the retro mic / whatever that would default pull from Docker, you could just do like retromic.net / whatever that image name is, like Bitcoin node or whatever it might be. And then in addition, there are other options for hosting packages, like NuGet packages. So I'm a big .NET developer. I can host those here as well. Oh, lots of flexibility with this one. And this one's kind of more streamlined from a developer standpoint, where GitT is more of, if you're familiar with GitHub, basically a clone of GitHub for the most part. I'm kind of leaning more towards OneDev, but I'm going to thoroughly evaluate these probably do a follow-up video on which one that I selected. And I'll definitely be putting out some information on which one I went with, how you guys can start to see the code once I get my code migrated over. And then if you guys want to contribute anything like that, or just, host your own code there, that will be an option for you guys as well. It'll be open for anybody you'll be able to self-register. So you won't have to, I won't have to invite you or anything. You'll just come here and you'll hit go to the sign-in page, and you'll be able to go to sign up, and you'll basically be able to set up your own account. So that is my plan. Unfortunately, GitHub has, essentially restricted my account. They haven't completely banned me, but it's getting pretty close in that they're restricting pretty much everything that I do that allows me to create Docker images for you guys for actually running crypto nodes, things like that. So I will be able to do those through other paths. But the one thing that I've been holding off on is I don't want to publish Docker images unless I can make the code freely accessible for all of you guys. And so that is the reason why typically, I could always download the code, build the image on my system, publish it all through my system, but then you don't have that verifiable point of the source code that it was built from. This will give us that verifiable point, which I always recommend. So this is our plan moving forward. This is kind of what we're dealing with. I think it's probably a step in a good direction. Obviously, we're now going to be running all of our source code on our own hardware, which from a privacy standpoint is probably better anyways. But, there's always that risk of what happened, how do I handle backups? How do I persist the data just in the event there is a hardware failure? Anything like that. So we'll be going through those motions probably over the next several months. And definitely stay tuned if you're interested in kind of this impromptu project that I wasn't planning on doing. But unfortunately, if I'm going to continue to contribute to the open source community, especially within crypto, it is something that is definitely necessary.